What is the most terrifying thing you've ever experienced while home alone? Years back I woke up at around 10 am and started to watch American Ag before getting up. Next thing you know I hear my back door open. A normal thing in our home since we only use the back door. But no one was supposed to be home yet. I assumed it was my mom and didn't think anything of it. Then I heard footsteps coming up the stairs as my bedroom was on the second floor. I called out to my mom and get no response. Then my door cracks open and a head pops in. It's a 30-ish-year-old man with a blonde beard and a big mane of greasy hair who looked shocked to see me. At the time I was about 260 pounds, 6'3" and 20 years old. I was also sitting in only my boxers. Before I was able to realize what was happening, he asked us to speak. He makes a swift exit before I can recollect my thoughts he's not even in my driveway. Talk to a family friend who is a veteran police officer. Turns out a man has been pulling this kind of stunt to rob people in nearby towns. I was about 21 or 22 and living by myself at the time, and I left my window open on a pleasant night. It was low enough to the ground that you could get in if you really tried, but the screen wasn't easy to take off and I lived in a fairly safe neighborhood, so I didn't even think twice about it. Woke up in the middle of the night because I smelled smoke, and I reached out to turn on my lamp and my hand hit what was very obviously a person. My brain fully woke up at that point, and I realized there was a shirtless man in my bedroom, smoking a cigarette and staring at me. I remember yelling for him to get out, and I must have spooked him just as badly as he spooked me because he left out my window and took off. I slammed it shut and moved the bookcase in front of it, and when I went out the next morning in the daylight found the screen sitting against the house. Didn't sleep the rest of the night, and I haven't slept with a window more than cracked ever since. I also absolutely refuse to live on the ground floor of a building. I don't know if he was planning to rob me or rape me or both, but it was absolutely terrifying and makes me wonder how many times it happened and I didn't wake up. My BF worked away from home a lot and I always struggled to sleep on the first night he was away. On this occasion I was woken by the sound of a man shouting and then someone banging on wood or a front door. I jumped up and looked out my bedroom window just in time to see a man dressed all in black walking through our garden towards the house. I ran to the front of the house to look out of the front window and made sure he kept going. He did, but he met up with another man dressed in black walking towards my house. I was terrified and called the police. They arrived in a matter of minutes and checked out the back garden, but they were gone. Turned out a neighbor had caught them both trying to steal his car, and one had escaped through that gardens while the other had run through the roads, and they had met up outside my house. I didn't sleep at all that night and my brother came to stay the next night. I'm so glad I live in an apartment now, much more security. You know those tongs in the kitchenette of a spring but a latch to keep them together? I had a pair of those and I put the latch on and put them down on the counter. I went away for a bit and came back and then they jumped off the counter at me. Biggest jump scare of my life. The latch had come undone and they sprung open. But in a millisecond when inanimate objects suddenly come to life and jump at you, you don't realize this and totally freak out. I had the police not one day while I was alone. The cop put a guy in the back of his car who said we were holding his friend captive. I showed the cop my ID and explained that it was just me and my husband. He wasn't home but they could look if they wanted to, and he said no, that was okay, and then asked questions about my neighbors. When I was young, I came home from a party in the middle of the night when my dad were out of town. I started making a midnight way saw dealer when I heard someone cough in the basement. I yelled and ran outside, and they took off through the backyard. Come to find out, my dad's ex-GF's daughters told her key to our house and came to rob us. She was busted a couple years later doing this to her SIL. I worked from home, so I'm home alone a lot. One day I was working, and out of the corner of my eye I noticed some movement in my backyard. There was a man jumping over my fence into my backyard. Panicked, I call my then boyfriend, now fiancé, and tell him what is happening. While I'm on the phone with him, I get a knock at my front door. It's a woman from CenturyLink informing me that technicians will need access to my backyard. I tell her someone just jumped over my fence, so I think they're already there. Way to give me a heart attack, CenturyLink. One evening, an explosion at a petrochemical plant located a mile from my house blew out the double window in my living room while I was in the room. I definitely thought we were being bombed until I remembered where I live. I had just let my dog out to the backyard and he was completely traumatized. For the following 2 months I had to carry him outside and sit in the grass with pieces of chicken just so he would potty. I was living alone after my ex-husband moved out, and that creepy guy across the street who was 20 years older and enjoyed drugs kept trying to date me. He would harass me when I left my house or arrived home and would threaten to rape me. I had just started dating my current BF and he helped hang up motion detecting lights outside. I started carrying pepper spray and leaving the alarm on whenever I was home. My BF and I also agreed that if I didn't text him for a certain period of time and he couldn't get a hold of me, that he'd go to my house and check on things. I also xed him on my work calendar just in case. It got so scary that my BF actually moved in a lot sooner than we planned because I felt so unsafe. After creepy guy watched my BF move in and saw him pottering around with project cars in the driveway, he stopped harassing me and moved away a few months later. I've never felt so unsafe in my own home, wondering if the outside lights were on because of the neighbor's cat or because creepy guy was trying to break in. I lit 2 long paper candles for some ambience while I was playing guitar late at night. I was facing the other direction looking out the window while playing, and shortly later turned around and went back towards the candles and discovered one of them was completely gone. The stand was still there, but no melted wax, just a bare candle holder, and the other one was still lit and no shorter than it was when I lit them. It was almost 3 a.m. and I was so terrified that I got in my car and left a note to my dad's house. Thanks for watching and don't forget to subscribe to my channel. See you on next video.